There we go. Now we're official. We had 9 varsity female student athlete racers. We had 27 male varsity student athlete racers. We had 9 female JV2, 29 male, 19 female JV1, 65 male JV1, 10 female freshmen, and 68 male freshmen. In the MSA category, we had 10, and in the 8A, we had 29 boys, and in the 7A, we had 21 boys. In the 8th, or what we refer to as 8B, we had 5 females and 46 males. In the 7B, we had 16 females and 63 males. And in the 6th grade, we had 21 females and 46 males. From our point of view, it was a whirlwind of activity until about the freshman JV1 race. Once we start hitting races that are multiple laps, we actually get to do things like go to the bathroom and drink water. And so that all morning is kind of a blur. So let's start with the middle school, especially the middle school boys and the middle school girls. What kind of feedback or observations did coaches have that we probably missed because we were really deep in the weeds on things?
Do you want feedback verbally or just in the document? I wasn't.
Oh no,
missed that at the
feedback
beginning.
verbally. Yeah, please. Yes. You talk, I'll type.
Well, I'll start off by just saying that I was a little skeptical about how the middle school stuff was going to run and the timing, and I thought that part of the day went excellent. And both our returning riders and our new racers all had great experiences, whichever heat they were in. There was no issues.
Okay.
I'm gonna say something.
Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
I'll go. I thought the call-up system with having the names ready, I thought it was very fluid. I thought that was great. Seemed like it was hard for you guys to keep up last year of who's next, and hoping somebody hears you. And with just calling the names, I thought it was seamless.
Excellent. All right. And thank you. We had a coach in the coaches meeting who suggested that we call the place number, then the student athlete name and their plate number, so that we were giving like 3 things for them to key off of that was theirs. And I think that went really smoothly.
Hey, one comment on the call up. There was an occurrence. I can't remember. It was one of the high school categories, but could not hear the athlete's name or place number. And I know in the past you've controlled who can be in the call-up area, like only head coaches or representation. There were a lot of parents, other folks that were around, and just a lot of chatter. And it would be helpful if we limited the number of non-coaches and racers in the call-up area to eliminate that extra noise.
Okay, so the suggestion is that we limit who can be in that area. All right.
Hey, Sean, Jeff
Yeah.
LeBlanc here.
Yeah, Jeff.
Okay, I would have to completely disagree with that suggestion. Okay.
Welcome
we
to the
had, especially
NCICL.
when you're talking to first. Yeah. Well, no, I just want to throw it out there because you got a lot of first-time students out there. We've got a program with our team where We have race buddies assigned, and a race buddy accompanies their partner to the staging area, holds water bottles for them. If it happens to be cold, they'll take their jacket from them when they're getting ready to, get into the chute. They're there to assist their racing buddy. Those kids need motivation. I understand a little noisy. I mean, if you want to limit anything, limit the blow horns and the sirens and all that stuff from the staging area, not limit parents and, teammates who are there to motivate, cheer on, and help them out. The only time I had a hard time hearing anything was when somebody was blowing that horn and screaming their sirens in the staging area. Save that for the start chute, not the staging area, but as long as we're not overcrowding the line where you're supposed to be, which we weren't, which seemed to be fine. I didn't have any issue with that. Yeah, sometimes it's hard to hear, but again, you listed the student's name, the student's team, and the student's call-up number, 3 different things that the coach standing there doing the staging should have. Obviously, all that information. You should know the call-up number of your student. Obviously, your student's name and your team, and you listen for those 3 things. But limiting the motivation process from that staging area, I think is a bad idea. Just my opinion.
Yeah, this is John Harding. So I made the original comment and agree with you. Motivation is fantastic. It's a very good thing, but I missed all 3 of those call-up facts and had an athlete that missed their call-up number because could not hear. It was for, the freshman high school category. There were a lot of people around, just couldn't hear.
What about if I could make this a suggestion, we do some sort of visual. It'd be fairly simple to just print off numbers 1 through 100. We're never gonna have 100. Not this season, but we could just have like a flip chart. So we would have like calling number 1, number 2, number 3. So there would be a visual to go along with. So that would be the place number that we were calling. So we'd be calling rider call up 1, rider call up 2, and do it that way. Do you think that would help?
I think it would, but I think it would be onerous on the race organizers.
Well, I mean, it's easy enough. It wouldn't be something that Brian would juggle with the megaphone. There would be somebody beside him that would have the numbers. So I think we could probably make that happen. We could try it at Salisbury and just see how it works. It'd be pretty easy. Lars, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I mean, I get what John is saying, right? But I also think the cheering part is really important. And if you don't see anyone coming up after called, maybe that's a place to ask for being quiet and repeat the name. Could that be an option?
Well,
Because I
that's going
think
to slow us
having extra
down.
boards and numbers could be. I get that, but hopefully most people can hear it.
The problem is if we start having to repeat ourselves, we're going to very quickly lose a ton of time. So I think the big thing is going to be
only if you don't see body coming up.
Yeah, we've got to just assume that rider's not there. Like that's literally like the timing of things is down to kind of that level of parsing. So we need to make it super smooth. I think there was also a suggestion of like having a row number card instead of an individual number card. That's also a suggestion. So yes.
Hey, Sean, as the guy with the megaphone, I get the idea of pointing towards the team a little bit. With our placards out there, I can do that. I can do a better job of that. That made it real easy. So I can turn to, and I just want to remind everyone, we tried as best we could. There was a traffic control issue with our staging in between parking and pit zone, which added to the numbers and some of the confusion I saw in there. And I think we won't have that issue at some of our other venues. So we'll have limited numbers in staging area anyway. It's a little more isolated at some of our other venues. So great points. I'll point that microphone towards where that next rider is getting called up. I think that might reduce some of the.
So I think a couple of people kind of like the row card system, which would be pretty easy. So I can make up a set of row cards on some poster paper and have those ready for the next race. And we can kind of go from there and just see how that works. If it's a visual backup and it
Okay,
helps,
and
that'd be great.
yeah, just for Diane, so you're not jumping out of your seat thinking you need an extra volunteer. We'll just use one of the staging assistants to do that. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
Saw Diane
I'm
smiling.
not
Okay, good.
adding a
Yeah.
volunteer to the rotation by any stretch.
So, hey, this is Erin with IC Imagine.
Yes.
So with the road cards, does that mean that 1 through 5 would be row 1?
That's row 1. Yeah. So
And then if somebody, right, but if somebody from row 1 didn't show up, then whoever's in row 2 would move to row 1, right? So that might
Yeah.
be confusing as it goes down the line. So I feel like maybe the number's better, but that's just one comment.
okay.
But I did want to say that I thought the middle school went great. I thought that it was confusing at first because I did not have the wave time breakdowns. I was going off of something and I didn't have that colored sheet. And so that colored sheet was really helpful. As soon as we had that, we got it hammered out. And I thought it went great. So I guess one of my questions is it going to be the same in following races? And that will be really helpful for the team to kind of get into the swing of things.
No. So let me answer that question before you go on. This is a work in progress. So you will see these these schedules kind of shift slightly. And so don't take the one from this weekend and just show up and use it again. We'll put that with the race flyer so that that's all clearly delineated. And that's where that colored one was. It was in the race flyer. So we'll have that again in the race flyer once we finalize that out.
So was that in the race flyer the whole time? I must have missed it. I'm sorry.
Yes, yes. And we're working on
Okay,
a system for better pointing to specific things in the race flyer so that you're not having to dig through the whole document.
Sweet, thank you. So, and then one more thing was, I guess, I was a little bit worried about I knew that splitting the fields was necessary, and I think that it went well, right? Like with the size of the fields, I thought that was much better, but I do feel like field 2 has a disadvantage. But I guess that can't be avoided just with the size of the groups.
How so?
So I just wanted to say, well, so field 2 is just going to be slower, right? Initially. So even if, so I had a few riders that started in the back of field 2 as their first season. And so, the field 2 is going to be slower. Even if they made their way to the front of that field, they're still not competing with the faster riders from the field of the first one. And it's fine, those riders are going to make their way into field 1 for next race. So they're in a better position for next race. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean,
just my-
I had a rider in the same position, 7th grade, first race, started in the back of wave 2. My team drew the 62nd call up out of 62 teams, and he finished 21st overall. So he's moved himself into the 5th row of the wave 1, and I anticipate him moving up from there. So, I mean, I feel like he was competitive. He passed about 10 or 12 people. So we'll see how it shakes out 2-3 races down the road. Pete Howarth.
Agreed. I think our guys are in good shape for next race. I just, sometimes in those big fields, sometimes they can come from back all the way to front, which they did last year. But anyway, it's safer. It was better. We loved it. It was great. Thank you.
Guys, this is Carolyn from Holy Trinity.
Hang
I
on
just want
a
to point
second,
out
Carolyn.
to you guys. Sure.
Hang on. Pete had his hand up. So
Yes. So
Oh, sorry.
yeah, I just wanted to make a comment about the race flyer and the timing on that sheet and the colorful page. Please download the very last revision before we leave, because the timing and scoring is going to be tweaking that so that I mean, we might even, I mean, who knows how we're gonna change it around? Maybe we'll even move things so they can pack it in quicker. But you know, the timing, it was 15 minutes between waves this weekend, but we're hoping to work our way down to like the girls events where it's 2 minutes, but you know, maybe the boys won't be 2 minutes apart, but maybe they'll be 5. So if we can do 5 instead of 15, now you're getting home half an hour, 45 minutes earlier. So just download it last minute if you can.
All right, Caroline.
My comment was for what Aaron was talking about, just so you guys know. I do think it will shake out in the end with the fields. I thought that was great. I think since it was the first time we did it, we did have to remind our middle school, especially our 7th grader who came in first, wait a minute, you're not really first, because we got to see what shakes out with field 2, and he got knocked down to 2nd. So some of those field 2 riders were able to come up and, you know, depending on where they were staged, of course. So I do think over the next couple of races, it's all going to shake out. You know, but I did tell my guy that came in first, hang on a minute, you're not really first. We got to wait and see where the times come out. And it turned out he wasn't first, he was 2nd. So I do think in the end it will work out. But I think it's better than last year, where you're staging you know, you're getting lottery constantly. I think it will work out. I think overall we were very happy with it.
Excellent. Brian Russell, longtime listener, first time caller.
Yeah, I wanted to address the race flyer, and Juliana, saw your note in the chat there, and I think we might take that on board and maybe put a date timestamp on them. But just procedurally for everyone, we have all of the flyers published right now for all of the venues. And so when we see final registration numbers on the Monday prior to that weekend, we will look at the wave category and field sizes. And that's when we make the decision about how much gap there will be between particular fields or categories. And so Wednesday morning, I will release what I call the final flyer, and I will do that through the town hall invitation, and I will do that through the single track times on that Wednesday. So by Wednesday, everyone really has the final flyer, and I don't see a need to change it per se until the weekend. Our 2 opportunities to tell you of any changes will be at the coaches meeting on Saturday before we go out on our course inspection, and then certainly Sunday morning at 8 o'clock during the coaches meeting, if we have to change those times in any way for whatever reason, a weather call or something that happened on the course. But that's the general process I want everyone to be aware of. Final flyer goes out Wednesday morning through single track times in the town hall invite, and then I post it to the website, and you can always find it there. Whatever the latest version of the flyer is will be on the website. And then we'll do, I call it game day changes over the weekend, and we'll get that word out to everyone.
But Sean, I don't know how to raise my hand, so I'm looking all over the place, and I don't want to
Hey,
cut anybody off, but I don't know where this hand raising thing.
Kudos to you for just being able to operate a computer.
Thanks. Don't be making that brain comment now. Okay. Appreciate it.
I said
Anyway,
nothing
I see
about
Ryan's
crayons.
hand up, but I don't know how to do his hand up thing. Okay, very good. But just on this subject of the fields and stuff, I don't know if this was done purposely, and if it was, great, but it's something to think about. I would much rather have my rider who's in like 20th overall in his category be number 1 through 5 in field 2 than be 20th in field 1. So if the plan is to move all the fast riders into field 1, you're looking at a disadvantage. Even though you've got to wait until both fields are done and the scores are put together. That happened yesterday. I had my better rider in the front of field 2. And it's like, great, I'd rather you be there than be at the back end of field 1. So I don't know if that was done on purpose or just this one time, but when you start putting this stuff together, that's something to think about, that folks, you probably want your better riders who are hanging around that spot of 15 or later to be more in the front of field 2 than to be in the back of field 1. So again, did you do that on purpose? I don't know, but it was great. It worked out fine. Thank you.
No, that's not the way it was done. It was literally done like, you know, if we've got 1 through 65, 1 through 33 are going to be wave 1 and 34 through 65 are going to be wave 2. So Ryan Daniel, you had your hand up first, and then I'll get to you, Matthew.
Yep, and I'm happy to cede the floor to Jeff if he can't raise his hand. I know him well enough. I was gonna say about the flyer. I don't know. I do a lot of Google Docs. I've never tried this, but I know when you updated the flyer, I'm pretty sure you had a new link. And is there? I mean, this is a detail, but is there a way to update it without changing the link? Because like I post the link to our team spawned, and so then I had to like update the link because the flyer was at a new link. Does that make sense? It's a small detail, but it'd be nice because we're not searching for the new link.
Yes, that was an error, and that should be not an issue in the future. It'll just be the same durable link.
Great, thanks. Durable link. You're all fancy. That's what I was thinking.
All right, Matthew.
I just needed to bring up the issue that happened with the varsity boys start, and I assumed it's maybe an opportunity to improve safety at the other starts as well, to make extra sure that the race course is clear before the start. And again, I don't know if there's a volunteer assigned to that, but it was an issue that caused a wreck in the varsity boys start.
And
where that wreck was.
I'm sorry, what's that?
Oh, so for people that are not aware, the varsity boys start, there was a pile up at the start that looked like it was one of the normal, like, somebody bumped bikes or whatever. But in fact, there was a dog that entered the course, and one of the riders swerved to the left to avoid hitting the dog, and that was the root cause of the pileup. So there was a failure to clear the course and make sure that there was no one inside the banners.
Hey, this is Tony from DSA. Actually, the dog wasn't inside the chute at the start, and it was probably 100 yards from the start to where the dog was, maybe a little bit less. And the dog kind of bolted out. And I think what we need to do is kind of analyze the chute and that the whole start procedure. I think if I'm agreeing with Abby, the dog moved into the chute after the start. And maybe we had some things in place last year, like the snow fence, instead of the tape. That would be helpful. And it might be helpful to just expand the chute width to give all the riders a little bit more room. Even if they spread out tape to tape, they'll have better visibility in between riders, and you'll disperse it. But we did lose, during that wreck, we had, almost 20% of the varsity field went down, 5 out of the 27. And one of those riders, I forget I think they were from Guilford. They got pulled on lap 2 or 3 because they had blurred vision and a headache. And I know that student is he's a 5.0 GPA student, right? Like, and so there's bigger consequences for these guys. So maybe we need to take a couple minutes and just talk about how we think we can improve the start safety, especially for the speed that these guys are going. We all know we have incredible athletes that are very, very quick. So I just wanted to make sure we had time to talk about it, think about ways we can improve the start by either changing the chute, putting in volunteers, whatever it might be, to make sure we don't have this happen again.
So let's
agree.
Let's kind of unpack this a little bit because there's a lot there. And so one issue you're bringing up is volunteers, but the picture that I saw is of a dog underneath tape. So there's not really a way, unless we just lined the entire start chute with volunteers, that we would be able to catch something like that.
I agree. I think I jumped to ways of improving the situation rather than just describing what happened. So I
Yeah,
apologize.
and that's what I think
I've
too.
never
I don't
seen
want to
threats
focus.
like that at any race. I'm just saying, I mean, there needs to be a little more protection for kids who are really competitive and really fast. And I mean, we need to just come up with a better plan in the future.
Well, let's just,
Yeah, and I'm not
let's
trying to
just
focus
hang
on
on,
the dog,
hang on,
right?
everybody, and let's just calm down because I can hear a lot of emotion. And what,
sir, I'm
just hang on.
actually very calm. I'm actually
No,
very calm.
I understand. I'm not speaking to you. I'm just, everybody's starting to talk all over everybody else. So let's just take just a moment, just kind of relax. So, let's kind of think about some of the issues. And so some of the things that we've got to work, some of the constraints that we have to work under. So the suggestion was widening the chute. So one of the things that everyone needs to be aware of is that the chute has to neck down so that everyone crosses the timing pad, and the timing pad is 15 feet wide. So regardless of how wide we make the chute, at a certain point, it's going to get to 15 feet. And so by keeping the chute all that width, then the speed is not building, and then all of a sudden crunching down. It's actually consistent until it widens out so that they're accelerating through the same space. So let's kind of focus on the thing that caused the problem, and that is dog. And so I think the easiest possible solution for this is talking about dogs not being in the start area. And that's an easy fix. That's something that we can definitely action now. So I think that's an easy one for us to address. Everything else, when we start talking about making sure that we have rider safety, that is exactly how all of this stuff works. And so Todd, you and Ben are on here. We've got our Chief Course Marshal, Brian Wood. So you can speak a little bit to the rider safety issues that we discuss Friday, Saturday, leading up into Sunday, and kind of talk about that. So Todd.
So this is Ben Harvard, race ops manager. I'm not sure how many people can hear me due to my voice.
Sorry, I was typing.
Go ahead, Todd.
Yeah, I lost my train of thought.
I can read what you wrote if that would help.
That's how I'm feeling.
It's okay.
Yeah, I mean, we have snow fencing. We don't have enough poles and pins, and by pins, we're talking the 18-inch concrete pins that we have to get down into the ground to put the poles on to attach snow fencing. It can be done, absolutely, but that doubles, maybe even triples our equipment need that would be required to do it. Also, with snow fencing on the start, that does add another level of concern. It's much easier to snag a bar end, and we've experienced that also early on, several years ago at Browns Creek, where we used to run it up the same path. Like Sean said, we need 15 feet. We typically widen it a little bit. We run at 18 feet, but it's a little bit over to just get that extra 1.5 feet on either side for the start. We do widen it after that a little bit. On those corners we did. But then he said, like we said, we still have to tighten it up to go into the single track, because you don't want it too wide where they're just going to be all over the place. You got to funnel them somehow. I agree. Dogs on course. I've been listening. Yeah, it is a danger. Absolutely. Those with dogs. I'm a dog person. I have a dog. You have to control your dogs. We're going to have to keep them away from the start line. I don't know how to do that other than just watch your dogs, get them away. No more. They can't be within 10 feet of the start line, period. On a leash, tight to your side, and not anywhere near the tape. Just to start. I mean, that's just throwing that out there from the start. So
yeah, and I agree with that. I just don't know how you would. I mean, thinking about the length of the start chute, right? I don't know how you would ever possibly imagine enforcing that.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's,
So
it's a huge
here's what
challenge.
I know. In that pile up, like I said, we got a kid who's being recruited by all these colleges for his brain. He might be in concussion protocol right now. We had a Division I cycling scholarship athlete go down. Like the risks here are high, right? So we need to come up with something. And I don't know what the answer is, right? And if we can't, I agree. In this case, it was the dog. So if it's easier just to focus on the dog, which I don't think is the optimum solution, then let's come up with an idea on how to keep the dogs away from the start shoot that far. And again, that requires fencing or volunteers. I'm going to guess. I don't know. I don't have a guess. So I don't know if you have a solution for that, how you're going to police that.
There's one way to really police that, and that's just no dogs, period. Which, I mean, I hate to go that route, but if we have to, then we will. But that'll be something we as the staff, Brian, sorry, not speaking for you, that we need to discuss and look at our way ahead. So.
Yeah, but Todd, this is.
Because I mean, I have dogs. I leave them at home, and but I think dogs being there, and it's a lot of the culture, and I think that's great. I think we've seen some comments about maybe not, at the start or whatnot. I think it's really just the making sure that the student athletes are safe at the start. So it might be people pushing it on the tape or whatnot, but and maybe more volunteers. I mean, I volunteer every time. I think it's a that particular race, people really want to see it start because it tends to be really fast. And if we just need to put more people in there, and then maybe not have dogs that close, or snow fencing or barricades or whatnot. I think there is a reasonable solution without it being too difficult, and without banning dogs altogether. So yeah, I think to just kind of hear thoughts and whatnot.
Well, like Ben also said, I'm not shifting anything on you there. Great comments. But we have the same issue with people crossing the start line. And personally, I don't want any crossings on the start shoot. But because of the way it was with the porta potties, we had to have one. But that's another thing we got to look at too. So
Agreed, absolutely. But I think the start line is something to maybe to just look more carefully at. When I volunteered and I was a crossing guard or whatever you call it at the finish. But yeah, maybe the start needs to be a more, for lack of a better word, sacred place. Where there's a lot more oversight. And it's not a knock. It's just for maybe from the comments I'm hearing, to make an improvement for other races.
hey, Sean, there's a few people with their hands up.
All right. Let's go with Diane first.
Oh, okay. Thanks, Sean. First of all, I just want to say that the volunteer thing, coaches that are on the line, how difficult it is to get volunteers in the first place. So we were really blessed to be almost 100% at this race. It was pretty amazing. I just want to reiterate what I think Todd said about it's not just the dogs, it's the people. Some of the comments that I had from some of the crossing guards, people are just rude. Let's just call it what it is. They told them that they couldn't, go across the start shoot, and we should be able to go and blah, blah, blah. And I was standing on one side while I'm just hearing some of these comments. So coaches, I understand, I'm a coach too. We have a lot of responsibility, but one of the things I want to encourage you with is this. if you have parents that it's their first time in a race venue, a lot of people just don't even know what to expect. They don't know proper protocol, like how you act at a race. And so I think part of our responsibility is just to talk to our parents and say, this is what it's like. You know, please be careful, you know, in these certain spots. Obviously the race chute being one of them. And I think we just I think part of what's going to help this is helping our parents and the people that we know are going to be there to understand this is what it is. And you know, this, if you can choose to be safe and use some common sense, it's going to help all of us as well. But you know, obviously whatever the staff comes up with, if we say, well, we need to have a few more volunteers, I'm going to do everything I can to make that happen. But you know, like I said, please make sure that your students understand they shouldn't be crossing, that parents understand they shouldn't be crossing, because I think that's going to help alleviate a lot of the problem that we're having. Thanks, Sean.
All right, Abby.
Sorry, thanks. First, oh, sorry about this. I saw dogs being problems all over the place, not just the starting chute. And I think if you're going to patrol them, it's going to be hard to say not the starting chute. I wholeheartedly think dogs should stay home. I have 2 dogs. I have to get them, somebody to take care of them every time. There were dogs fighting, dogs being off the leash, running away, like going towards the course. I mean, it was, I think wholeheartedly, dogs stay home. The other thing with this starting area that I haven't heard anybody say yet is it was a downhill start. And I was pretty sure that, I thought it was one of the rules building the course that you couldn't have a downhill start. And I think that led to a lot of crashes. And so I know in the coming races, from what my memory serves me correctly, most of them are all uphill. And just maybe next year we can figure out a way to not make this one a downhill start, because there were lots of crashes. And I think it's because of the speeds. They're just going really fast. And the purpose of that wide start is also to spread them out. And it didn't do a very good job of spreading them out because they were going so fast. That's all. Thank you.
All right. And Bevan, I saw that you had your hand up earlier. I didn't want you to miss out on what you wanted to say.
Sorry, I just was also commenting on the dog stuff, but it sounds like I had a lot of people complaining that they didn't sleep well because the dogs were barking in the camp area, and you know, kids had told me they couldn't sleep the night before the race. So just wanted to kind of put that out there as well. I have a dog that I adore, but I just think, yeah. I mean, I get that is camping, but this is also a different kind of event. So just putting it out there.
All right. And just to speak to the downhill start, I know that that was something that the race crew was really striving for, but it comes down to lay of the land. And lay of the land just was sort of getting in the way of us being able to do that. That always is the goal, is to have that uphill start. Todd, I know that was a topic of conversation for you all. So if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, we this was the first year at Browns Creek that we actually had the split start finish. Lay of the land there with that bowl, we are either going to have multiple corners or we're going to have that downhill. Before the race even ended, Ben and I were already walking and talking about how we can do it better next year. How we can make it not have a downhill on the start, or at least there'll be corners. So unless we move everything even further out into the field and use the flatter, sandier part out there, there's not a lot of options there. But trust me, we talked about it, and we were looking at it after from Friday, from day one. We changed it a couple times and had many discussions on it with Pete and everybody. So yeah, trust me, we do work at that. We talk about it. We change things multiple times, and it's all about the safety. So we realized that we had that downhill, and it was tough. sorry about that, but yeah, it'll get better. And thanks for everybody with the input. I mean, we can't do it without you, and with all the input, it's going to make things even better for the next time.
And one thing I want to speak to about a lot of these suggestions, because I'm starting to see more and more like know this, know that, and I want us to understand, like, as a league, we will not be able to create rules to get ourselves out of these things, but we are a community, and a community, everyone in the community is empowered to sort of set that community norm. And so what, things like one wheels and things like that, like this really something that a coach can easily handle that with a student athlete and say, do not bring that to the next race.
Yeah, a lot of that.
And that's something that I think really a lot of this is talk with your teams, talk with your parents. And then if we're at the race venue and you start seeing things, you're all empowered, you're all coaches. And so you're all there to sort of like help create this community norm. And so one of the things that I give kudos to all of you is that I saw one person without a helmet on a bike this weekend. And that's not always the case. And that was because of someone that they had a hat on and forgot that it wasn't a helmet. And when I went up and speak to them, they were just absolutely mortified. So I knew it was not the norm. So that's something that in the past, like I've had people just cruise by me, and whenever I said something to them, they would give me attitude. So that's kudos to all of you for really messaging that. And I think that that's something that we all need to think about whenever we're talking about these behavioral issues. Like, let's think about, well, what can we all do as a community to sort of enforce these things? All right. And then SML.
Hey, Sean, this is Sume. I agree with you. And I think that it should be up to the coaches to talk to their teams, talk to their kids, the parents, and let them know that what the rules are. And those who have dogs, we have dogs, we keep them at camp. They don't bark all night. We heard coyotes. There are houses around Browns Creek that have dogs that bark. There are plenty of kids that come out there and ride bikes and have one wheels. That's up to the coaches to let their teams know the rules. I don't think it should be pinned on you to let everybody know. It's kind of common sense, honestly. I don't think, if dogs are banned, we can't go. Point blank. I feel like we have a lot of responsibilities, and we do what we can, and we do the best that we can. And everybody should take part in their responsibility.
Yeah, I don't think anybody's disagreeing with any of those words, right? The thought is, what do we do for the next race to make sure the starts are safer for the kids that are racing? What does that look like? No one's
well, and that too, we're also here to coach our kids and to teach them how to mountain bike. And that's, but you got to teach them all the aspects of it. And I know we need to keep it safe.
Yeah, and I think that's what I think that's what we're driving for. Like, what do we do for the start next time to make sure it's safer than this time? And I don't know if we know what that is yet.
So let's, at this point, I want to pause and let our Chief Course Marshal Brian Wood speak, because I think he's got some things to share about this as well.
One of the things that I was, hello guys, hope you all had a good time this weekend. Thanks for all your help before I get started. One of the things we also can think about when it comes in terms of the dog and other kind of course interference things is we do have penalties that can be assessed. I think that I know that it was probably a crazy moment when that group crashed, and we're trying to deal with that and make sure everybody's safe and okay and headed out on the course. But what I would think about down the road is once that all kind of, washes out, if you know who that was by identifying the dog, find one of the league staff members and show them who that is and allow them to have a conversation with who that parent, coach, spectator, whoever it is, and let's make sure we know who they are. And then truly, if it causes an incident like that, hopefully as a staff, we can figure out what team they're associated with. And there are consequences penalty wise for the teams that happens with. And I think that's not necessarily to apply a penalty to the team. I think it's the same thing that happened with helmets. Coaches started talking to parents and kids about wearing helmets when they were there because there was a team penalty assessed when those kinds of things were happening, or an individual penalty. And so that will motivate coaches that know they have families that have dogs to communicate that need to keep the dogs managed and off the course. It's not going to work every time. Like Sean says, there's no answer that's going to fix all of these things. But I think it'll move us in the right direction there. And Sean, are we just talking about the dog now, or are we moving over? You made it kind of sound like talking about some of the incident reporting that I was asked to come and do tonight, which I can wait till later to do.
Well, I think that what we need to do is, we've taken this feedback. We recognize this as an issue before we even had this discussion. So we appreciate all of the feedback and all of the ideas, but this is going to be something that the race crew is going to now take and set their minds to what we do to plan for this at Salisbury and mitigate these issues and work out a possible solution. So there's no, as Brian says, there's no need to solve this tonight because I don't think that's a solvable issue. But Todd, Ben, and the rest of the race crew, they'll work on this to ensure greater levels of rider safety at the next start. Stephen Cole, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, can I change the subject?
Yes.
Yeah. The 8A and 7A boys starting 2 minutes, or 8A starting 2 minutes behind JV2. The first 3 boys in that race passed about 20 JV2 riders, and it had a bit of an effect on their race, just in terms of the tightness of the course and trying to pass that many kids. Is there any way that can be changed? I feel like we did a great job this year with making the B races for middle school safer and all have a very clean, course in front of them. But, the A racers, which are the more competitive ones, they're running into a lot of people.
So they were running into JV2s?
Yeah.
Okay. So that sounds like potentially looking at the wave buffer. So like the dwell time is what we call it. So
yeah, the problem would be that you extend that too long and then varsity is going to be catching the back of 7A before 7A finishes.
And if you'll remember last year, I think we were running the 8A, 7A races first and starting the varsity and the JV2s after them, so that it gave them essentially a lap buffer with these faster riders then going out basically when the 8As and 7As were about 3/4 of the way out on their first lap. And that might be a potential thing. So we'll take a look at that.
Yeah. Okay. I don't remember that. I was only at 2 races last year though. So maybe that was done at some of the races, but pretty sure the races I was at, the 8A and 7A started after varsity.
Okay.
But I looked at it. I hate bringing stuff up when I can't even suggest a solution, but I don't have a solution.
We spend lots and lots of times because to be perfectly honest, the solutions that people suggest to us have knock-on effects that then we have to try and solve. So no solution is just like, oh, why didn't we think of that? That works perfectly. They're all just like have to be considered and worked out. So don't worry. Like this is the kernel of something to get started on.
Yeah. I mean, by my count, the front of 8A, the first 3 kids passed 18 to 20 JV2 riders.
And we'll have that in the race data. We'll be able to look at it and see how many they passed. So, all right. All right. And then Sydney, you have your hand up.
My comment was sort of related to the previous one. And again, first time coach, I've done motorsport racing. I think everything went really well, and I know they're going to tighten up, but I know the B middle schoolers had 15 minutes before waves, and then everybody else was like 2 to 6. And I'm looking ahead at the draft flyer for the next race. I see the boys tightened up, but I don't see any more time kind of spread between the other waves.
And that's something that actually there were emails going out today about that. And so that's something that is being looked at and worked on, and that'll be fleshed out as we go forward and looking at all the data and all that sort of thing. We have a full league call on Wednesday. So we'll be looking at the whole league staff. We'll be taking a look at everything, kind of going through point by point and all of that. So,
yeah, Sean, let me just jump in here. I just want to give credit where credit is due. Jim Otto has been analyzing all of this since the beginning of really having registration data on Browns Creek. He did his initial analysis today. Just like you said, Sean, some decision to move something either short or longer has a ramification somewhere down the road. We're also sensitive to ending our day at a decent hour, recognizing folks have to drive home. So we certainly could extend some times, but it's going to be a really, really long day for a lot of people if that's the case. So it's just things we all take into consideration, but just wanted to give credit to Jim Otto for helping us do a lot of the great analysis on making manageable start wave gaps and times and the like.
Hey, I would like to tag on to Steven's comment about passing. So in the JV1, we sent the last group of freshmen out when the leader of JV1 was coming to the start finish line. And then immediately when they crossed the pedestrian crossover, they then proceeded to let about a dozen pedestrians cross. And it was not a good situation. So then he has to pass the 38 kids that you just let out in front of him. And it just makes for a really unsafe position because there was no gap between them.
all right. So I'm making note of that.
So I'll raise another comment if I could, just in this same vein, in the high school girls races, because of the way petitions were done for moving up, there was a lot of variation in where the speed was in the different categories. I think JV1 had the fastest lap times. If we're going to do it, solely based on age, we're always going to have the same, JV1 boys, super fast kids in that race. It's going to be much, much harder because the difference in time in a given category from the leader to the back of that pack is so great, because we're not doing the categories based on ability. We're doing it based on age.
So we don't strictly do categories based on age. There's a full upgrade petition pathway that's in the handbook, and there's lots of kids that are upgraded based on their performance in their previous season. So they don't go to just the next category. They actually go to the 2 categories up. So there is that petition pathway that is that sort of ability based racing. With a lot of the girls races, we were looking at their petitions. Some of them were upgraded and some of them were not upgraded as far as they wanted to. But now after one race, then we can look again and we can start to better assess where everybody should be. So those things are kind of ongoing as we go through the season.
Yeah, I just think we need to move to a less age-based view of it, because I think it still is largely that way. I mean, there's a huge discrepancy in varsity. So kids in that 4-lap race, like the timing difference, and JV too, and that's what's causing the 8A kids that are at the front of 8A to catch so many of them.
Well, you can see that full petition pathway and how that works.
Oh, I've been down it, Sean. I know the details.
Okay.
I've been part of the rejections.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I
know.
mean, yeah, not trying to debate you, just saying like it's all right there in black and white, and that's what we follow. And then there's some discretion that then Brian
But
exercises. So
yes, I was gonna say it's not all there in black and white. Like there are exceptions made in some cases and not
Mhm.
other cases.
Yep. And that's all league director discretion. So, and that's with the it's all looked at with the league rules committee, and they take a look at it, make suggestions, and then ultimately the say goes to the league director, and he goes according to what he's doing. And like I said, it's just an ongoing fluid process. So anybody that wants to petition now, like, there's the next wave to petition before this Friday, and that gets into a higher category as well. So
what is the likelihood of you guys lifting the varsity? So when a kid is listed as a freshman, you make him race as a JV1. By NICA National, he is allowed to race varsity. By North Carolina rules, he's not. What is their talk of lifting that? Because when times are comparable with varsity times, till you run into 40 freshmen that you then have to navigate, like, why do we want to hold those kids back? They have aspirations. And is there some talk about maybe re-looking at that at some point?
sure, we can always address any rule changes like that, but they have to be done. They can't be done mid-season. So it's league director discretion on things. And then if we're going to make an actual rule change, that's got to be submitted to NICA National, and then they approve the rule change, and then that goes into the next handbook for the next season.
Okay, just to be clear, I've been trying to do this since before the season.
Okay. And, we have a new league director. We've been in a state of flux for a while. So if you want to email Brian, and he can have that on his to-do list for whenever we start looking at the rule book for next season. All right, Abby, do you have your hand up?
Thank you. Are we done talking about that? Can I talk about something else?
Sure.
Okay. I wanted to talk about the pre-ride, re-ride, and free ride. We are very much take to heart the beginners, first-time racers for pre-ride, and even our re-ride, our faster kids, we make them wait until 4:15 to get on the course. There's a drastic difference. I'm sure you all know when you ride that course fast and when you ride it slow.
Yes.
Very different. During the pre-ride, there were multiple coaches with beginner riders on the course, clogging it up. None of my varsity JV2 riders got to ride much length at all at race pace or even close to race pace. They were constantly getting stuck behind people. And so I'm hoping we can get that out to the coaches. I'm pretty sure that's not what it's intended for, that beginners should not be there during pre-ride. And telling our teams, yeah, you don't need to ride with a coach. It doesn't mean it's a time for everybody to go ride.
So any suggestions in this? I've been saying the same message for 2 seasons now.
So, and I guess I'm just saying this to
Yeah.
all the coaches here tonight. Like, it's not fair. There's 3.5 hours of time for beginner and moderate kids to practice.
Well, and the converse to that is that during the pre-ride portion, I was at the line and saw a team with 3 varsity riders behind their coach, just looking like, why are they going out?
Yeah.
And I was on course with during the re-ride portion, and a lone rider with no coach passed by me, and I asked him where his team was, and he gave me a vague, they're up ahead. And then I found out from two other people that they had already spoken to him, and he was trying to jump in with their group just to sort of blend in while he was around race officials. So this is a messaging issue. Again, this is a community issue, and one that, you know, there's no, I'm not going to levy penalties to get my way out of this. There's no way that I'm ever going to get everybody to play by the rules. I had a coach really frustrated with me because he could go super fast during the pre-ride portion because there were riders stopped ahead of him looking at something, which is exactly what they were supposed to be doing in the pre-ride. So I really don't understand what the issue is. So I'm not sure. And then David, pre-ride felt like too long of a time period. Well, the reason why is because there's supposed to be lots of stopping in that. And then free ride is an hour and 15 minutes. And so that should be time to do 3 laps at pace if there's nobody clogging the course. So this is something that I need everyone's help in sort of helping communicate this and set a standard. So if you're going out on your ride and you see varsity riders lining up with a coach, or worse yet, what I saw was riders riding with a coach behind them and no coach in front of them. And that, I think, is the bigger problem, because then those riders are setting whatever pace they're trying to set. So nobody's riding together. So I'll message this again at coach's course preview. I will, message this again whenever we talk, and perhaps I need to just stay at that start line for the pre-ride and the re-ride and just make sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do. But I need everyone's help in this because we've got to communicate this together.
Yeah.
And Laurel, you had your hand up.
Just on that note, Sean, I'm looking at the draft flyer for Salisbury, and it's got the times listed for those rides, but no details about who should specifically be out during those. So, I know I only ever heard these specifics in the town hall call, but if they were on the flyer that everybody reads, it might help with that.
Okay. I'm not going to make the joke that I was going to make about everybody reading the flyer.
Sean,
but
everybody reads the flyer cover to cover.
I'm a teacher. Nobody reads anything. Yeah, we can certainly put it in there and just give a description. I'll be happy to do that and make sure that that's yet another place that people are seeing the same message. So I do talk about it in the coach course preview to make sure that everybody understands, but we'll just keep hammering it home and try and make sure that at some point this will stick. Now that we have stats, we can limit free ride to sub 20-minute lap times or something. That should be a team responsibility. I think that's not a bad idea, Matthew, to just say like, hey, if you can do a 20-minute lap, like this is your time. All right. So perhaps some sort of lap time target for free ride. All right. Laurel, did you get a chance to speak? See your hand up.
Yes, sorry.
No problem. All right, Ryan.
Hey, Sean. So I'm one of the coaches that likes to ride as much as I can on Saturday. So I was out there almost all afternoon. I hope I wasn't one of the people that did anything that somebody had a problem with, and I hope that you will speak to me if I did. But I will say that I don't have a solution to this, but what I noticed on our team is the kids love the idea of being able to go out there together. Like they were waiting for that, like our 7th grade kids. And like, how do you tell them, no, you can't go do that? Because they don't get to ride. Like that's a great adventure for them.
Yes.
Just to go out there as 2 people. And so two friends. And so I don't know if we could have an earlier time for that. Like that's what I saw. Like kids were like, now is the time we can go together. And they went, right? But of course they weren't as fast as some of the kids that wanted to go fast. I get that. So that's just my comment, that I think that was part of the issue, and I don't know how to solve that, because I don't want to prevent it either.
Well, let
uh-huh.
me throw this idea out there because it just came to me. What if we do free ride first? Free ride for the fast kids. So varsity, JV2, 8A, 7A, like go out, it's free ride time. And we do that first. And we let those kids blast it unencumbered. They're out there. And then we start doing the pre-ride and the re-ride portion. What does that sound like? How's that sound? Yeah, everyone does think they are fast. Yeah, agreed.
I mean, I think the kids, at least on our team, they liked both aspects, right? We always skip the first time because our kids don't generally need that. And we go in the middle time as a team, and they all enjoy that because they like riding with the kids who aren't as fast, right? Like they've got friends of different speeds. So we always go as a team in the middle time, and then they always go as buddies in the end. And I think that also is helpful. I ran into some large groups during the free ride. So I think if it's limited to smaller groups, like just riding with a buddy, then it makes it easier to pass when you're faster or slower. But I also think you could split the free ride into two times, right? Like a faster time and a slower time.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to play around with this, and then I will kind of shoot something out to head coaches and team directors with some ideas, and then we can kind of discuss it or however you want to do it. But I think that that's something that we can kind of think about, and maybe we're just sort of like, we're trying to do it the wrong way, and that's why nobody's adhering to it. So let's get that figured out.
And I just want to say, I think this is a quick answer. I have an adventure idea to incorporate like other riding opportunities, but I don't want to bring it up to everybody right now. But who do I have to Shell about that? Is that right?
That is Shell. That is a Shell Frost email in the making.
I will do that.
You get to have a new friend.
Awesome.
All right. Other questions, David?
Yeah, I don't know if this got mentioned earlier, but I had a JV1 rider that was in the second field that was about to start his third lap, right as a freshman was finishing, and he was directed off of the course accidentally, and he did not go out and do his third lap as he was supposed to. We didn't have anybody there to get him back onto the course, and so he out of competition. I know of at least one other team where that happened, but fortunately they did have a coach at the finish area that questioned it and put the kid back on the course to finish his third lap. So just when we have people directing riders off that they finished their race, they just need to very carefully look at the number or look at the color of the number plate to know which one they're directing off and which one they need to let pass.
So this year we have a finish line referee who is making those calls. And I don't know which rider, it may be the other rider that you're referring to, but that rider was not directed off. They followed the freshmen that were finishing in front of them. And it was someone in the finish chute whenever they said, why was I told to get off? And the person said, you weren't. These riders are freshmen, you continue on. And he went back out. That was the story that was relayed to me. So I will work with the finish line referee to make sure that we're doing as good a job as we can. It's difficult whenever mixed groups come in fast like that. It's easy for somebody to kind of just follow the group, but we'll work on that and make it better for next time for sure.
Yeah, thank you. I agree that it is hard, but I mean, that one kid that said, why am I being directed off? He took, positive action to get himself back on the course, it sounds like. My rider did not. My rider was thoroughly confused and did not know how many laps he had done, which I need to talk to him about that. But also, if the referee could have been actively making sure that he stayed on course rather than just focused on pulling the other riders off of the course.
All right, Jeff LeBlanc, you figured out the hand raising button.
Yes, I did. It just takes us a little longer sometimes.
It's
Not
opened
because
up a
I
whole
was
new world for
Marine, but
you.
Because I'm old. Just a couple of notes I had. I just want to throw these out just for the staff to talk about in their call on Wednesday. I did talk to Ben about these on Sunday. One of them was the pit zone. I understand we're limited in size, but one of the problems I have is that the pit zone, your team's size is being strictly based on, a 10 by 10 slot for every 4 students. What I discussed with Ben, and when I brought him over to my pit zone, I go, you need to understand, I had 21 students registered. I had 18 coaches on hand. Our pit zone looked like you were trying to shove a whole bunch of crap in a very small bag. So it's just an idea of coaches are not taken into account when determining pit zone size. So obviously I know pit zone is limited, but that's just something to look at, is not only registered students, but how many coaches on here. I guess we're an anomaly. I have almost as many coaches as I have students. I am blessed by my team, but that needs to be looked at because we definitely did not have enough room for coaches and students. The other thing I want to throw out, I talked about, I walked around the pit zone and I saw all these great bikes for sale. If you didn't walk around the pit zone, you had no idea that there's teams out there with awesome deals on great bikes that their kids have outgrown. I'm suggesting that we have an area set up, maybe up by the league trailer or something, where people can put bikes for sale that their students have outgrown, that they're looking to sell, with contact information, team information. Would be a great thing for the league, for these kids to be able to pick up some great deals on great bikes. So just an idea to throw out there to be discussed by the league staff. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. And Elise?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I just would like to address the issue of the porta potties. You knew.
Oh, that
you
was
knew-
that was
you-
terrible.
Come eventually. I
Mount poo
understand.
poo.
I'm ready.
So I did see that they were pumped on Saturday, but I felt like it was before the big crowds are already there. I was wondering if you all would be able to schedule a evening pump on Saturday night to help with that issue, or get more porta potties. As a woman, or as we should say, as someone who squats to pee, there's no toilet paper left by the end, and it's just, I was trying to tell all the new parents and everything that this was not the norm.
I got this, Sean.
Better you than me.
Yeah. We had scheduled the what they call a refresh. They were supposed to be there Saturday between 4 and 5 p.m. They showed up about 2 o'clock to pump out the porta johns. They did not refill the water or paper towels, and probably not toilet paper either. So that was noted. That was a failure on the company's part. I think part of that is where it was coming from on a Saturday afternoon. They don't work, so we're really paying for that. But we contracted it. So they should do what we contracted them to do. From here out, for the rest of the races, yeah, we're gonna definitely go back and look at the contract again and have that conversation that, yeah, we need it at the end of the day on Saturday, not Saturday at noon or early afternoon. So that was definitely noted, but thank you for bringing that up.
All right, thank you very much.
It wasn't the worst toilets I've ever seen at a race, but it was top 5 for sure.
Yes.
All right. Jeff, do you still have your hand up, or have you not figured out how to put it down yet?
I'm sorry, I didn't put it down. I was looking for the pile of poop emoji, and I want to complain that there wasn't.
All right. No.
Hey,
I wanted to see if there was any way that we can have the start line set by free ride on Saturday so that riders could practice their gears and their starts and such. It seems like there's, or at least I'm never clear on exactly where that first row of riders is going to be lined up whenever we're practicing on Saturday.
All right, that's a Todd Lester question all day long.
We we had it set where we thought, and then I don't know, 7 o'clock in the dark, Ben, Pete, and I and Joe were up moving it back 60 additional feet because we felt it was too short. Yeah, we do the best we can on Friday. We did not tape everything Friday because of the windstorm that was coming our way. So Saturday morning, we tried to get that all done. We make every effort to get it done. Sometimes we're short on volunteers. This weekend was truly phenomenal with the volunteers that we had. So yeah, we do the best we can. And if anybody else wants to come and help out, please come out Friday and help us get it done.
Yeah, appreciate all you do. Thanks for considering that.
All right, Sean, I'll get to you next. But I want to let everyone know that Ben is on the case with how to figure out pit zone sizes. He's working on that. And so there will be some changes as we come forward. All right, Sean.
Yes, I was asked to mention this whenever we had this call. So with the Trek set up and the little jump zone they had set up with the jump blocks, I didn't really notice it, but someone walked up to me and said, you know, that's kind of unsafe for people that don't know anything about the races and they're walking through here. I was like, man, there's plenty of space. Well, then I watched it for a few minutes and there were, you know, people that were walking across in front of the exit of the jump line and several almost got hit. So, I mean, basically we just kind of extended the small cones that were out there a little bit further. But the person that asked me to talk to you guys would see if we could figure out a better way to delineate that so people aren't walking across the exit of the jumps.
Okay, so better delineation for that area.
Yeah. And I did see quite a few people just about get hit, but it was a cool feature, so I hope we don't get rid of it.
Okay. All right, Abby.
Thanks. This is coming from one of my coaches. In the finish shoot, they have requested or to see, they said when the kids are coming through, they're, you know, they get off their bikes and they're quickly rushed out of there, which I totally understand. We had a handful of kids, and if anybody has any great advice for me, that kids that are cramping up, like legs full on, coaches are having to like lift them off their bikes. And it was like mad rush and they're just collapsing on the ground. And somebody was like, can we have like a puking, cramping row? And I can walk and get off my bike row. Like, we're going to be a little easier on this crew, but these guys can get out of here. They were just like, and maybe they're just really good at their job and pushing them out, but my coaches were like, they were really, you know, frantically pushing me out of there and I couldn't move the kids.
Okay, so area for post race distress issues in
Hey, Abby,
exit
does it need to be bigger, wider?
I think bigger. They were like, get out. And my coaches were like, I can't, like, they can't walk or they're throwing up, you know? And it was like varsity when there weren't that many people coming through, you know, varsity JV2. And I think they're stuck in like the middle school, like there's so many kids coming through. But they were just feeling like they just needed a little bit more time to get the kids able to move out.
Right.
Yeah, and I think you hit on something, maybe a little, if possible, maybe a little bigger, right? Because like, think about like the varsities and the JV guys are, you know, some of those are pretty heated finishes, which is just what we want, right?
Yeah.
And then you have these guys at full bore coming across the line. And as rightfully mentioned, you have students moving maybe a little slower, riders moving a little slower out of the lane. So that might be cool. If there's enough room to make it a little bit bigger or even longer, that might be helpful if possible.
Yeah, sorry, first race of the season, we're a little rusty in getting all our dimensions set. So we'll get better. It'll improve.
No, man, it was.
Thank you. No.
This is the suggestion section, so that's
absolutely.
That's just suggestions. No one's
I love
complaining.
them personally because it only helps us, and it helps y'all. So
can I respond to that really quick? Sorry, Sean.
Yeah, I was gonna say, so Audra was working that area, and Abby, I'm glad you were there. She said that there was some kids that got done with the race and they were cramping and there was nobody there to get them out of the way. So they were trying to help them up, but they were cramping, so they didn't know what to do. So, I mean, I think another idea is to make sure that somebody's showing up for kids that are finishing, especially the ones that are doing 3 and 4 laps where they're going to be exhausted. Because she said that there were several kids that came off and they had no one there to support them when they came off the finish line.
All right. Abby, did you have anything else? Okay. Matthew?
Oh, when you started talking about that, I remembered that several students were asking if there was a way to do a cool down lane where they could stay on the bike and pedal for a couple minutes rather than immediately jump off and walk. And they got, there were several of our students that got overheated a bit, I think.
All right.
I don't know if that's logistically possible.
that would definitely be a challenge.
Yeah.
I
did see lots of riders kind of exit past the trailer and then they were riding up and down in the field over in that area, and that's totally fine.
I agree. I think maybe for safety, it makes sense to have a short walking space to get out of pit zone, and then you could hop on your bike again if you wanted to.
Yeah. All right. David.
David McBride from Cape Fear. We happen to be friends with all the bike shops around town, and the two-wheeler dealer were neutral support for the race. And this is less about the race, but more feedback for the teams. From the mechanics point of view, it seemed as though the expectations of neutral support was much more than just the barrel adjustment and kind of tweaking to get bikes going. They had numerous instances of housing replacement, bleeding brakes, kind of stuff like that. And so, which I typically see as kind of out of scope. That's something that we struggle with our teams, getting our kids to take care of their bikes and stuff like that. And so, would just like to make sure that the coaches are communicating to their teams, about the importance of bike repair and bike maintenance.
Yes, and I will own that and say that I need to be more explicit in communicating that. And that's something that we need to also message in the race flyer, because I think that is definitely an issue when people are just going, oh, well, I'll just take it to the race and they'll fix it there. And that's absolutely not what neutral support is about. It is there for emergency repair. So we will make sure that we are more explicit with that information for sure. Thank you for letting us know that. All right, Lars.
So you're right about the thing with taking care of your bikes, right? We actually talked a little bit to Shelly about as an adventure thing, to have like a bike maintenance area up there where we can teach them how to do it and how to clean them, what to check and all that, because it's always a problem, right? Because on Saturdays, there's not much to do for a lot of the kids waiting to get out there and between their rides.
Okay.
That's a really good idea. Like maybe if there's a shop there, maybe on Saturday or something, they could do like a 1 hour or 45-minute how-to session. That's I really like that idea. That's a good call.
So maybe having our neutral support lead a
How to?
how to
Yeah.
repair clinic. I like that. And immediately I started getting butterflies in my stomach because you know, we teach coaching, we don't teach bike maintenance, and that can be all over the map as to what people can do. But I feel really comfortable with having our neutral support people lead that because they do know what they're doing. So I think that's an appropriate maybe ask of them, and that's something we can work on for future races.
Hey, Sean.
Yes.
Hey, sometimes with the neutral support, I mean, they are there for the racers to help with those small things. They don't always have the staff because they're still maintaining their bike shops hours and having somebody at there. So yeah, that's something we can definitely look at. And maybe we have a couple different shops from the local areas. And or as Trek is jumping in more, that could be a thing also. So.
I mean, I think a lot of teams have some good coaches that have good experience that if we're talking, you know, sort of minimal bike maintenance type stuff that could be volunteer done as well. If it's, I mean, somebody said 45 minutes or an hour. I mean, I think it's like 10 to 15 minute little sessions that kids can stay engaged in and attend, right? Like,
Yeah, like cleaning your drivetrain 101, you know,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, we have to be very careful because we're starting to walk in a very tricky area. And this is speaking as, I mean, I've owned bike shops. I've worked in my fair share of bike shops. I feel very comfortable and confident and competent in working on bikes. But one of the main things that has come out of the NICA safety study is that one of the main causes of crashes that result in a report of an injury has been brakes, and typically following a coach working on said brakes. And so this is a very weird area for us to start to go down because it opens up a lot of potential risk. And so
So-
I want us to be very careful with this.
So the intent of my comment wasn't to try and come up with more things that volunteers can do for kids. You know, the intent was to make it clear that athletes need to come to races with their bikes ready to go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I agree 100%. All right. Any other feedback? Would electric brakes help the cause? Yes, they would. I think we all know that electric hydraulic disc brakes are wireless would be the main solve for all of that. Any other feedback? You all have been great. You've been sharing lots of stuff, so I don't want to take any time away from you.
Hey, Sean.
Yes.
Something I'd like to just bring up here toward as you're kind of winding down.
All right. Go
Um,
for it, Todd.
Ryan, please jump in if I'm stealing your thunder on anything. Trash. There was I'm usually the first one on at the venues and I'm typically the last one to leave. This time I noticed trash being left throughout the pit zone. We did do a trash walk, several of us. So just one thing we need to remind ourselves, we're all human, we drop stuff, it happens. But you pack it in, you pack it out. So trash barrels are not that far away, drop it there. Same with camping. There was some stuff found. Clean up your areas. Don't leave trash laying around. Take it home or put it in the barrels where it belongs. So I won't go any further on that. Thanks.
Thanks, Todd. And one thing I would like to add to that, I'd kind of like to throw a challenge out to teams, and it came from looking at all the trash that were in the trash can. Let's see how many aluminum cans we can put in recycling bags at the next race. And, you know, if I've got to throw them in my van and take them to the recycling center, I've got no problem with that. But let's see how much we can mitigate our waste, because after everyone leaves and I look out at all the trash that we as a race organization generate just in tape and all of that stuff, it's insane how much waste we're generating. And I want us to kind of figure out some ways that we can minimize our waste and mitigate that impact, because we are, after all, racing bikes. So I think that would be awesome if we can start to just sort of come up with ways ourselves, not trying to do anything formal, not trying to make it a big thing, but let's just see how much of this we can keep out of the trash and do something else with it. And yes, Sunday, the canned race tape not be reused. I am racking my brains on a way for us to do that, and we're working on that. So there were not any recycling bins. Unfortunately, that's not something anybody's providing for us. So we're going to have to sort of police that ourselves. All right. Other feedback. David, you still have your hand up. I don't know if that's just a holdover or if you had something else you wanted to say. All right. Anyone else? All right. Brian, do you have anything that you would like to, or excuse me, Brian Wood, do you have anything that you would like to share with basic safety stats from the race before we go?
Sure, just some real preliminary information for you guys to process. On Sunday, we only had one student athlete have to go to the hospital. They went in a personal vehicle and were treated and came back. We did have 5 EMS extractions, but it seemed like most of those EMS extractions happened basically at the EMS marker points. EMS did not necessarily have to go out on the trail and remove kids. Course marshals were able to get them to a point, and then they just got to ride back into EMS. And then there were 5 that visited EMS but were not extracted. They walked in on their own. None of those, so out of 10 throughout the day, well, 11 throughout the day that EMS saw, only 1 had to go for further care. We did have 11 other reports come in, but all of those riders basically just needed a minute to gather themselves and continued on course. Didn't require any intervention beyond just notification from a course marshal with EMS, and never came in to see us. We did have 1 rider that DNF'd. We're not really sure why. We eventually located them with the team safe and sound, which was good. Last year we had sometimes we were looking for some riders that didn't cross the finish line, but this year it was just 1, or this race it was just 1, and they were quickly found, identified, and found safe. And that's just kind of a rough rundown of what we had. It was a busy day. It doesn't sound like a lot of numbers, but it was a busy day. Thank goodness for Wave 3 with all the girls, because they didn't have a single call, and we got to get a bite to eat and give EMS a little break there. So thanks for everybody and all the things you did. You need anything else, Sean?
If you can just remind everyone what triggers a designated reporter safety incident report for a race weekend, so that they know, like, seeing EMS on site does not trigger the report, correct?
That's correct. The only time you need to do a trigger a safety report is going to be if that rider sees somebody off site. If they go to a hospital, if they go to EMS, they go to an urgent care, or if they miss a day of work, if it's a coach on that weekend, or a day of school as a result of the injury they sustained over the race weekend. Those would need to go to your incident report log. Other than that, it does not need to be reported. I think the one thing that I would also bring up with that is that when we have riders that have suspected concussions, those riders are, and we provided that information to the ones that we saw, those riders do need to go and be assessed by their family physician or a doctor somewhere We had a couple of kids that had their bells rung, so to say, maybe a little confusion. Those are pretty automatic going to be will need a report, because they do need to be assessed and cleared by their doctor for any kind of suspected or potential concussion.
All right. Thanks for that. And then Aubrey Whistler, your question, is it better to submit, I'm assuming, the safety incident report and then add details as they come in? Yes, although they give me a heart attack every time one comes in and it's basically empty. And I'm just like, okay, is everybody still alive? But yes, you can go ahead and submit it and then just be adding and updating as information comes in. That's perfectly fine. And Jeff LeBlanc, with your hand raised, I feel like showing you that you can raise your hand on that button might have been a bad idea.
No, just reiterating the comments here about the awesome national anthem. What a great addition to this season. The only thing I want to throw out is, can we please do the national anthem as close as possible to the reported time in the flyer? We had several teams out in the field behind us warming up, and they go, did the national anthem go? They couldn't hear it. They didn't know. They were all scheduled to be back in our area at the time of the national anthem, and it went early.
Okay.
They missed it. So we told them, be back at this time. Well, it went like 5 or so minutes before the posted time, and they go, did we miss it? So let's just shoot for that, because it was awesome, and I'm sorry that they missed it.
We got you, Jeff.
All right. Is there anything else?
Sean, I just want to say a huge thank you to all the coaches for encouraging their other coaches to volunteer, and the parents. You guys heard me say earlier, we were at about 98% when we had got ready to race on Sunday. All of our Marshall spots were filled, our roving Marshall spots were filled, and those are the ones that we call mission critical. If they're not filled, we can't run a race. So I just want to say thank you. Please thank your coaches for myself and Jenny Wood. Thank you. Thank your parents as well. It was absolutely phenomenal. It's a really great problem when you have so many volunteers, that people that just pop up and want to volunteer, and you don't have anything to give them to do. So thank you. Keep up the good work. It was a great weekend. And Sean, I just wanted to share that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And yes, thank you to all of you for making everything happen the way it did. We really appreciate it. And thank your student athletes for coming and making a lot of hard work completely worthwhile. I'm going to stop the recording now. And if anyone would like to continue talking or would like to just speak with me afterwards, I'll be on the line for a little while longer. But thank you very much, everyone.